What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. We have some very interesting sports car news and also some other interesting choices by some car companies here. So we'll get into all that and more here in this weekly update. But first, I want to give a huge thank you to Harry's for sponsoring this week's update. Harry's makes high-quality German-engineered razors and a variety of other products for a clean and comfortable shave, all without charging outrageous prices. I've been using the starter kit that I received, which includes one of their 5-blade razor cartridges and the nicely weighted Truman handle, which is really satisfying to use in combination with the blade's flex hinge and precision trimmer. It also comes with a travel blade cover and their foaming shave gel, which smells great, foams up nicely, and really does a good job of moisturizing and soothing with ingredients like aloe and hyaluronic acid. And it helps provide a smooth shave, of course. It's also really nice not having to worry about running out of blades or remembering to buy more thanks to their optional auto refill subscription that ensures that you never run out. They have a 100% money back guarantee, and for the cherry on top, 1% of their global sales are donated to nonprofit charities. So if a premium shaving experience at a non-premium price sounds good to you, you can get your $13 starter set for just $5 when you go to harrys.com/Maran. And when you do, let me know in the comments what color razor handle you got. And very quickly, I also wanted to mention that I will be doing another live stream here this Sunday at 12 noon Eastern time. So if you can join, we'll be hanging out, talking cars, and answering all of your questions. So come join if you can. But anyway, getting into the news here this week. Ford has revealed the pricing for the 2024 Mustang here this week, and prices have gone up by about $3,000 on most trims, with a base EcoBoost starting at $32,515, including destination. Part of that increase for the EcoBoost is that now you have to get it with the automatic transmission. There's no manual at all for any EcoBoost, which is actually really a bummer. I enjoyed obviously the manual EcoBoost that I owned for the S550 generation, and it's really sad they're not offering that because, again, not only does that drive up the price, but also just, limits the fun factor a little bit. But that's what they've chosen to do here for the EcoBoost, and the GT now starts at $43,090, and a premium GT will now be starting at $47,610. Also, the convertible is only available on the premium trims, making the cheapest EcoBoost convertible $43,500 roughly, and the cheapest GT convertible is now over $53,000 just for a regular GT premium convertible. So we have to keep this in perspective though, because yes, it is an increase, but there's some caveats here and things, whenever you look at how everything else is priced these days, it's not bad. Because if you look at a Challenger Scat Pack, obviously this is the final model year of them here, but with cloth seats and a small screen, that does give you 5 more horsepower with the, Scat Packs. But anyway, that's still $48,500 roughly for one of those Challenger Scat Packs. And that's, again, a bare bones vehicle versus the Mustang Premium, giving you leather and the bigger screens and all that kind of stuff. You also can get a Camaro LT1 for a few $1,000s cheaper, but if you go for a 1SS, which is probably going to be closer to a comparable, base Mustang, without the premium package, that still is only about $2,000 cheaper for the Camaro, and it has much less horsepower now. Camaros are still fantastic, but another thing to keep in mind too is that I think Ford realizes that they've kept the pricing pretty competitive for this year. We'll see what happens, in following years. But, the Challenger is done after 2023 here, and the Camaro probably will follow it shortly to the graveyard, sadly. It sounds like that's kind of the way it's going to go, is there may be a Camaro sub-brand in the future that's electric and different, but doesn't sound like we'll probably get anything new for the Camaro here as far as a actual Mustang coupe competitor. So we'll have to see about all that, but I just have to actually give Ford some kudos here for keeping pricing reasonable in line with its rivals, even though those rivals will be evaporating soon, most likely. And so, especially considering inflation too, that alone could account for the $3,000 increase. And the fact that you get the bigger screens, I'm personally not a huge fan of them still, but you get, more tech, you get more power, you do get more of everything basically with the 2024 Mustang. And plus, with the inflation and stuff, I just think $3,000 for an increase is pretty reasonable and honestly better than I was expecting. Now, if you do go up to the fully loaded Dark Horse models, those are going to be about $60,000. That's the big, one that's, the tough pill to swallow. But again, we have to, keep in perspective how much a Mach 1 costs for the 2023 model year and the extra power, the extra tech, and the inflation adjustment and all that, I think all things considered, it's reasonable compared to the competition. So anyway, very interesting to hear that. Let me know what you think about the pricing in the comments below. We also have a new teaser here for the final last call model that Dodge is doing here, and so it's going to be debuting in a couple of weeks. And so this week we have a new teaser, and it's captioned as "This time we're scaling things up." It shows an extra 7.1 pounds for the Hyde and the Jekyll and Hyde transformation that was teased last week, and so clearly, this points to most likely having 7.1 extra pounds of boost, thanks to it most likely running E85, and that will, of course, give us extra power. We'll see, how that all plays out, but we'll have more info here later this month, but sounds very promising so far. In some other sports car news here, a new report from Japanese magazine Best Car has two interesting rumors about the GR Supra here. And first, they claim about the current generation that its ultimate GRMN version, which we've heard lots of rumors about and various reports as far as how much power it'll have, what they're going to do with it, and all that. The new report here from Best Car says that they're claiming it'll potentially get the 542 horsepower version of that BMW 3-liter Turbo 6 from the M3 CS and the M4 CSL. Which, if this turns out to be true, I'll honestly be impressed that BMW let that motor go to someone else. And obviously, it's going to be very expensive as a result for this GRMN version, if it does in fact get that. But also, it's going to be a wild car. I mean, I know they'll have stickier tires and they'll do a bunch of other stuff to improve the grip, but will they be able to overcome the short wheelbase? I don't think so. That car is already an animal of 382 horsepower and 542. I mean, I'm sure it's wild in the M3 and the M4, CS and stuff. So the fact that it's going to be in a smaller, lighter, shorter wheelbase Supra is going to be wild if that turns out to be true. I'm taking that one with a grain of salt. I still am skeptical of BMW actually giving them that top version, but I would love to be, proven wrong and this article to be right. We'll see what happens. But anyway, can't wait for that if it is true. The other interesting rumor here, though, about the Supra is that they say that the 6th generation, which will be called the A100 pretty predictably, they say that it'll continue to be rear-wheel drive, but that it will be going electric for its new generation and adopt mid-engine proportions as well. This one I'm also, taking with some heavy skepticism, partially because, they say it's going to be getting somewhere between 444 and 493 horsepower. And unless they, again, do a partnership with BMW, otherwise there's no current Toyota or Lexus powertrain setup that's rear-wheel drive with enough power for a single motor to do that much power out of the back. Also, Toyota doesn't have a ton of stuff going as far as their electric, platforms and all that just yet. So this is going to be a long ways off, I think, if it is in fact true, and this is what they're planning on doing, and especially if it's a Toyota in-house project and not a partnership, I wouldn't count on this thing till the late 2020s at least. I mean, the current Supra probably has a couple more years left in it, but I think we're getting close to, at least the second half of that vehicle's life here. So we'll see how that all plays out, but that's what Best Car is claiming, that they say it's going to do that. And I mean, the mid-engine thing makes sense because if you don't have to worry about where you're putting the engine anymore, then it kind of frees up the idea of what a Supra is, and it can stray more from the traditional stuff since it's going to be getting rid of the traditional powertrain as well, which you're already upsetting people, so why not make it some kind of crazy awesome C8 Corvette competitor, but do the electric thing possibly before even Chevy gets around to it. So we'll see. But anyway, interesting to hear that report. One of the Supra's rivals that appears to be getting a faster version is the Nissan Z as well. So obviously, we've heard lots about the Nismo version. We know a Nismo version is most likely coming, even though it hasn't been officially confirmed yet. But thanks to another report here from Best Car Magazine, they've been busy writing rumors and stories here, doing lots of reporting here. They provide some new rumors about the Nismo version. So one of the interesting parts here, and again, they have their sources and all that. Their sources supposedly are claiming that it's only going to be getting a 20 horsepower bump for the Nismo and only doing 420 horsepower instead of the rumored 500-ish horsepower that we've been hearing. And so, we'll see. They also say it's going to have a higher red line, so clearly there's going to be more going on with the motor here than just turning up the boost or doing a quick little tune. It sounds like they're actually going to do some internal stuff if they're able to raise the red line. So that sounds promising. Higher red lines are always good news in my opinion, so that's going to be great if that turns out to be true, even if you only get the 20 extra horsepower. But They also say it's going to get unique bodywork that'll improve the aerodynamics and even add about 4 inches to the car's overall length, they say. So get some pretty aggressive front splitters, I'm guessing, going on that thing. So that'll be cool. They also say there's going to be some underbody panels they'll be using for better airflow at higher speeds, and they're going to modify the suspension, of course, the brakes most likely as well, all that stuff to make it more track ready and more composed. They also claim that it's not going to be debuting until 2024, so a little bit more of a wait here, and it'll possibly be a limited production model, which is really the wet blanket on top of the whole report. So if they do limit production, obviously, if it's something like the GR, Corolla and stuff where it's a hand-built thing or some extra production process, I can understand that. But it just relegates the Nismo to just being, a blank check buyer's special where people that are the diehard fans that'll pay anything for any kind of thing with a Z badge on it, they'll get them and, mothball half of them away, and then it just won't get enjoyed very much. We'll see if that all turns out to be true. Hopefully they do find a way to mass produce them a little bit more and they're not super scarce, but not optimistic on that. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, very interesting to hear that report as well. And for the last sports car news here of the week, it sounds like Hyundai is considering getting into the sporty car segment again with a production version of the awesome Envision 74. So obviously Hyundai has all their awesome four-door stuff, but they haven't really had any kind of coupe here for a good while. And so Hyundai's vice president of the N brand management and motorsports division told Autopian at the Canadian International Auto Show that my personal wish is to produce this vehicle. It's at first probably an investment, but if we could see this vehicle really out there and people buying it, I would be very happy. And, executives occasionally will be like, hey, I would love to build this. We've heard these kinds of things from, Mazda about some type of RX-7 successor. Every one of these car companies has enthusiasts within it that are dreaming of someday, bringing back all the awesome stuff and, having an unlimited budget to do whatever they want to do. But it sounds like there's a little bit more behind this than just him putting it on his personal wish list here, because they actually asked the Autopian in this discussion how much they would potentially pay for a production version. That's more interesting, whenever you have the car makers actually trying to put feelers out there as far as like, what would people pay? How do we position this vehicle? Is there some type of case that could be made if people are okay with something that's more expensive? I'd love to know more about the conversation as far as whether they were talking about making it just an electric version or if they're actually going to keep the hydrogen component that vehicle has. I feel like hydrogen just is not a viable thing if they actually want to make it a commercial success. So my guess is, it just takes the stuff from other electric Hyundais, puts that into a really sweet styled, coupe. And, again, coupes don't sell very well, so it's probably never going to be something high volume. But if it's some kind of halo model or just something to really get people's attention, I think it could hopefully make sense for them. We'll see. Hyundai's been on a roll with lots of awesome stuff here. So fingers crossed that they build that thing. Even if they just, do a Lego car thing. Just take an Ioniq 5 or an Ioniq 6 or whatever. They can just put that same powertrain under a cool body. Hopefully that'll bring down the cost enough that they could justify it, even if it doesn't sell a ton. And just get that thing out there, even if it's copy and paste from an engineering standpoint. We'll see, but anyway, at least it seems like there's a little bit of hope that that thing will actually be on the streets someday. So don't hold your breath just yet, but promising at least. So anyway, for some actual production Hyundai news here, they did a brief reveal of the 2024 Elantra refresh this week, showing just 3 pictures, but it's definitely an improvement in my opinion with the toned down grille and the sporty rear bumper. And there's no other info on it for now, but stay tuned for more, of course. It'll most likely be carryover powertrains, but, they just like keeping it fresh with the styling. And I do think, again, that's a very nice improvement on the styling front. So great to see that. Kia has also teased the production version of the EV9 that will be revealed on March 15th. And so from the 3 teaser images here, it looks to be pretty faithful to the concept and will be an impressive pioneer into the non-luxury electric 3-row segment. And so, yeah, stay tuned for all the info on that here in a couple of weeks as well. Volkswagen has revealed the refresh for the ID.3 this week. And of course, we don't get the ID.3 here in the States, so I will keep this brief. But Volkswagen says the refreshed ID.3 is taking a significant and noticeable leap forward in terms of quality, materials, and system stability, and that they've listened very carefully to the ID.3 community. And so one of those improvements here is the latest version of the infotainment software, which hopefully is going to be less buggy, they're saying, and also it upgrades the screen from a 10-inch screen to a 12-inch screen. On the outside, it also gets new bumpers, hoods, hood lights with the taillights now getting an X-shaped lighting signature there. And mechanically, it still uses a single rear motor and does the same power and range as before, basically. But charging speeds are increased from 125 kilowatts to 170 kilowatts now, much like they've been bumping up, I believe, the ID.4 and others. And so it's going to be going on sale here this month. And back to Best Car for another rumor here from their magazine. So they have a report about the coming Ralliart version of the Outlander PHEV. So they claim that thankfully it will be more than just an appearance package. There's talk, and I think there's even some pictures of a Ralliart appearance version that was floated, but I believe that was just like an appearance package. This seems to be, at least Best Car is claiming, that they'll actually have a decent power boost here for a Ralliart version of the plug-in hybrid. So the current Outlander plug-in hybrid does 249 horsepower. They claim that it's going to go up to 286 horsepower for this Ralliart version, and they say it'll also get suspension and rigidity improvements and have aero changes and styling changes, of course, as well. So we'll see if it gets as aggressive as the concept that was shown at the Tokyo Auto Salon back in 2022. But in the meantime, though, it's just one of these things where they're going to really have to make it stand out if they want to compete with the RAV4 Prime, which, by the way, will be up for a new version. If this thing doesn't show up this year, by the time this shows up by 2024, there's talk of already a new RAV4 on the horizon there, and that could get an improved Prime version and, keep the Outlander, in a distant second or third place, even if it is, a little bit sportier. We'll have to see about all that. It could handle better than the RAV4 Prime. But anyway, interesting to hear that. But speaking of the RAV4, Australian website Drive has a report out this week that claims that the next-gen RAV4 and Camry will both arrive in 2024, which we kind of already assumed just based on timelines and stuff. I honestly thought the Camry had maybe come a little sooner, but they're claiming 2024, and that they'll both likely be on revised versions of the current TNGA-K platform. This also makes sense. This is what we saw with the Accord, where it was like a very extensive restyling, but similar bones underneath. And it just, with the sedan market especially going away, little by little, it makes sense to cut costs there, a little bit. And especially if it seems these days people don't want things to change. So I think the best thing that they can do is not change very much, just keep it fresh as far as the exterior and the interior, and leave it be. And it sounds like that may be kind of what they're doing here. We'll have to see. But Auto Forecast Solutions it goes along with this and claims that April of 2024 is when we can expect the new Camry, to be precise. So that puts it around the New York Auto Show time. So maybe that's when they're planning a reveal. We'll have to see next year. But the new RAV4 they're claiming will be arriving in October of 2024. So we're still about a year and a half away from that one. And so that one will be a 2025 model year vehicle for sure. But one last interesting bit of news here is that the new RAV4, supposedly someone with insider information spoke with the Fastlane car and said that the RAV4 potentially will be going hybrid only for this new generation. And so I believe the hybrid take rate is pretty high for the RAV4. I don't think it's quite 50-50 from last time I remember. I'd have to, dig into that a little bit more. But it seems like, hybrid RAV4s are getting to be more and more popular. So I think they may just try and do that switch over here in a couple of years. We'll have to see. They might also just be something they want to do just to help boost their cafe averages. If it's their number one selling vehicle and they can get everyone to get the hybrid version, then you have, a nice, little bump there in your fuel economy ratings. Now, the Camry supposedly won't go for the hybrid, all hybrid switch. I think this is also something that might change, and we'll see, since that is still about a year and a half away. Obviously, they have the pieces there. They could carry over the normal powertrains, or they could make it all hybrid. That's something they could probably switch, close to last minute if they want. But I think, we'll see how the plan plays out for Honda with the Accord now having just, a couple base versions there without the hybrid, but then all the top trims being hybrid. Toyota could do something similar. We'll have to see. But I believe Camry hybrid sales, I believe Australia, their Drive site here, said that it's only about a 15% take rate in the US for the hybrid Camry, which I'm kind of surprised it's that low, but that's what they're claiming. So, if it is truly that low, then I can certainly understand Toyota not wanting to transition that to an all hybrid lineup if they're worried about, missing out on some sales. So we'll see how that all ends up playing out here, but very interesting to hear some rumors, and at least for those of you who may be, waiting for a new Camry or RAV4, now you kind of have an idea. It's not official. Toyota could surprise us all with something, next week, but I think, this certainly seems to make sense. And so anyway, interesting to hear all that. And for some other Toyota news here, Automotive News has a new report out this week talking with some of the anonymous high-ranking insiders within Toyota. They talked with a bunch of them and have some interesting insight internally. Supposedly, again, this is anonymous. Who knows how legit it is, but it's coming from Automotive News, so I'm inclined to believe it. So according to the report, they say some people inside Toyota are dissatisfied with the ETNGA platform for their current electric vehicles, especially after disassembling a new Tesla Model Y that was produced under the new GigaPress manufacturing method. And so supposedly one insider called that Model Y a work of art, and another said that Tesla's approach allowed them to make that vehicle 220 pounds lighter and used hundreds of fewer parts compared to Toyota's platform on like the BZ4X and stuff like that, along with having less limitations on battery capacity since the battery is part of the structure in the Tesla and it's separate in the Toyotas. So I can certainly understand that. I mean, clearly you look at the specs of a BZ4X versus the Model Y. The Model Y has way more range, way faster charging, way more power for, pretty similar money. And so I can certainly see, obviously, they don't compare very well. So I think Toyota is noting that, and again, just having their minds blown by, the way Tesla has done things here. And so according to the report, the revelations are so impressive that Toyota has halted development of some of their future ETNGA vehicles and are working on a clean sheet platform specifically for their electric vehicles. I'm guessing they're going to try and, take some cues from the Tesla ideas. And, they're going to, do something truly dedicated to EVs, not just adapted from a gas platform like the current stuff. So the sources say that while they work on this, they also want to make sure they can secure enough battery materials for all the EVs that they plan to build with, this whole setup. And so they're quoted here as saying, one of the anonymous insiders says, "We have to plan for the next 20 years, not just the next 5. And so because of this, it sounds like they're going to continue their diverse approach of, the hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and even hydrogen vehicles. And so because if they are truly halting some of the development of some of these future electric things to start from square one with a platform, then that actually means that Toyota could, in the short term, be further behind the electric thing and have less product. And it actually could hurt them short term, but hopefully it will set them up to, compete better with Tesla and those in the future. So it actually, even though they're working hard on the electric stuff, it sounds like we might actually get less electric stuff than we were originally planning on getting from Toyota, in the next few years. Interesting to hear that from Toyota there unofficially, and we'll see how that all plays out for them. BMW is one of Toyota's partners with the whole hydrogen thing. Getting back to that idea, they revealed to Autoblog this week that their new class BMW platform that's arriving in 2025 for their next generation EVs, they're going to be potentially adapting that for hydrogen. So BMW's general manager of the hydrogen program said that they are working on being able to integrate hydrogen into the new class platform. Not as of 2025 and probably only in the larger cars. We haven't finished the project yet, but it's a possibility. And they added that the idea is to have smaller tanks positioned next to each other that take up the space of an EV's battery pack. And he said that we haven't really decided yet, but the possibility is there. And lastly, they added that it's the most exciting project that I've worked on in my 25 years at BMW, and I've done some cool stuff. So, there's not much more to go off of from that. But that's really cool. If they could truly package, hydrogen tanks to be only the same size as an EV, battery pack, that would be impressive. And that kind of gets rid of the whole problem with hydrogens of having these giant tanks and stuff. And could be really promising because, again, they said everything else kind of would work since it would be a fuel cell that converts to electricity and not burning hydrogen or anything. And so we'll see. It's also been promising. There's been some new reports and stuff about natural hydrogen this week, which I didn't even realize was a thing, but it's a naturally occurring hydrogen that they could potentially drill just like oil and give you, a much cleaner way to produce hydrogen. So maybe we're actually starting to see the tables turn, and maybe the hydrogen thing will start to get a little more competitive and, a little bit more of a viable option here going forward. Probably, again, nothing soon. I think the EVs will certainly carry us for, the foreseeable future, but, I'm still leaning towards hydrogen being the actual long-term, solution in the meantime, but they will of course still be using electric powertrains. So, getting into the EVs with the batteries currently, I think, makes sense. But I could certainly see the hydrogen making a lot of sense. BMW's behind this, Toyota's behind this. Hyundai and Kia have been pushing really hard for this as well. Even GM, Honda are working on, hydrogen powered stuff too. Lots of companies, are working on this in various ways. And so hopefully, they can find some way to, work that out to, be a good solution as well. But interesting to hear that. For some more near-term stuff here, though, Mini has teased the third generation of the Countryman this week with some official spy pictures here of it in camo. So along with the pictures, they revealed that it'll be the first Mini built under the same roof as BMW's, being built in Germany in the same factory that builds the 1 Series and the 2 Series four-door versions. And that makes it the first German-built Mini as well, which is pretty wild. So beyond that, all they're saying now is that it'll be available in both gas and electric versions, and that production will be starting in late 2023. So cool to hear that. Unfortunately, the one Mini that may not be getting a new generation is the Clubman. So according to Car and Driver, it's now the worst-selling Mini. It sells even worse than the convertible version of the Cooper, which I have a hard time believing, but the numbers don't lie. It's just crazy. And so because it went from being the second most popular model back in 2016 to now dropping to the worst model for them, Mini enthusiast site Motoring File believes that the Clubman production will be ending in the first quarter of 2024. Car and Driver says we haven't seen any spy mules or any kind of prototypes running around for a new Clubman. And if it's the worst selling thing, everyone's just going to go up and buy the Countrymans and stuff, I'm guessing, anyway, these days. It's just a very small niche, and maybe, Mini just can't justify it anymore. And so that's what might be happening. Officially, Mini, whenever Car Driver asked them, Mini claims that it is a highly speculative report, but added that the company has not confirmed anything at this point. So that's also not aggressively denying it either, but says it's highly speculative. So, I don't know how they're playing that one, but we'll see, what ends up happening. It'd be a shame because I really thought the Clubmans were always really, really cool. So, unfortunate to hear that. We'll see what ends up happening, though. And for something else we might not be getting here, Ford has revealed the next generation Edge L for China. And it's pretty impressive, growing to now be just 2 inches shorter than an Explorer. On a wheelbase, it's 3 inches shorter than the Explorer, but still stretches about 8 inches longer than the current Edge. So obviously this is an L version. If we got it here in the States, we'd get a shorter version probably because we don't need quite as big of a backseat as the Chinese buyers seem to like. And so anyway, it sounds like the Edge in the US, is already probably going to be discontinued. We've had reports about that previously, and probably won't get a successor, and so at least not a gas-powered successor. And so it seems strange though, with Ford focusing so much on SUVs now, they're getting rid of a mid-size 2-row SUV, which is a segment that still sells very well here in the States. But, so I don't know. I mean, this thing seems pretty impressive, so you would think that if the old one, by the way, the old Edge sold over 85,000 units in 2022. So if they're doing that with a, pretty dated setup and they're still selling that many of them, could you imagine if they brought this brand new Edge that looks this sharp and this impressive over here? I mean, they'd still sell, over 100,000 of them easily. So I don't know. To me, this is a head scratcher why they're not offering this here, but as of right now, it's just for China. And as you can see on the inside, it also gets a 27-inch touchscreen that's very impressive, along with a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster. And it's even available with a 3rd row for this new generation. So extra flexibility there and extra marketability here in the States. Plus, I think it looks pretty sharp as well. I think they did a great job on the styling. The engine options in China are a 2-liter turbo 4 that does 249 horsepower, 270 pound-feet of torque. And there's an e-hybrid version with a few more horsepower, but it actually manages an impressive 37 mpg. So pretty good setups there, but of course they have dropped the V6, and that would upset some people, but I think it's a strong motor and would be a good setup still. So we'll see again what Ford does with the Edge here, but considering we don't get the Mondeo or a new Fusion, that got killed off, and they have an awesome Mondeo over in China. There's the EVOS over there, which I think could also potentially do well here in the States. We don't get that either, so I'm guessing that Ford's just going to keep all these awesome vehicles for the rest of the world, and we won't get it, unfortunately. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe we'll be surprised, but interesting to see that nonetheless. And some other unfortunate Ford news here. The Drive just discovered a patent that Ford recently filed for a system that enables a vehicle to repossess itself. So that's it sounds like something out of, these dystopian sci-fi movies or something. But they've been pretty creative about how it can harass you too if you're behind on your payments. So supposedly you could geofence the vehicle when you go into the car and limit where you can go unless it detects that you're having an emergency, in which case the geofence would go away. So they'll let you like drive to the hospital, or they'll call you an ambulance or something, but that's basically the extent of it. And supposedly it could even resort to emitting an incessant and unpleasant sound every time the owner is present in the vehicle, which really sounds like overboard. I mean, yeah, like they owe you money, but like to harass them nonstop the second they sit in their vehicle is crazy. And they said they could even do things like disable the climate control. And so after that, it would also use, if none of that other stuff worked, then it would actually potentially use the car's other systems to help locate the car for the repossessing agencies. And finally, someday in the future, whenever these cars can actually safely drive themselves, which still seems like a far off thing, and I wouldn't count on this, being a reality for a long time, but they say potentially under the patent, the vehicle could drive itself straight to the repo yard and just autonomously just be like, all right, see you, and just leave on its own. So that's pretty wild stuff. Now, obviously, again, the simpler stuff of this patent could be implemented. We'll see if any of it gets implemented. Of course, patents, people and companies patent all kinds of crazy things all the time that never actually see the light of day. So, don't get too upset just yet, but it just shows that Ford is certainly thinking about this and working on solutions for this. And I also can't blame them, though, because, repos are way up, with all everyone taking out these $800 car payments and, everyone just getting in over their heads, especially the past couple of years here, and rising interest rates, rising, car payments, all that stuff. There's certainly going to be more repos going on here in the next few years than we are used to in the past. So I could see, the reason why they're trying to come up with solutions for this, but it's also kind of crazy, and also where do you draw the line, as far as respecting human decency, I don't know. So anyway, again, a lot of this stuff is still, a long ways off if it ever happens. So don't get too upset just yet, but definitely a concerning patent in my opinion. So interesting though to see that. In some other much better patent news, GM, really on the polar opposite of the spectrum here, came up with one of the best patents I've seen in a while. They've patented a way for your touchscreen to clean itself automatically, which certainly with everything, being covered in screens these days, would be very welcome. So Auto Evolution found this patent from GM here, and so it uses a photocatalytic coating and violet light to remove fingerprints and smudges from your touchscreen. It just, the way they say, I guess the violet light reacts with the photocatalyst, actually does clean the surface physically. It's not just playing tricks on you, it actually will clean it. And the best thing is that it's all invisible and can be programmed to clean automatically or whenever the driver requests it. And so that is an awesome, creative, and impressive technological feat to come up with this. And I think honestly, GM, if they truly have the patent for this, they should sell this to everybody. Like, don't even just put it in your cars, sell it to the smartphone companies, the, tablets, all that kind of stuff. Everything with a screen could benefit from this, basically. So I think that's a great idea. That's very impressive. Kudos to whoever came up with that. And hopefully that is something we do see in vehicles and everything else as soon as possible. So very cool to see that. Back to some less comfortable news here. New Jersey is joining the group of states that are mandating 100% zero emissions new car sales by 2035 after New Jersey's governor last month issued an executive order about it. And so the condition in their executive order here is that they are only going to be okay with the 2035 transition if 100% of the state's energy comes from clean sources by 2035 as well. So they're only going to, have people do the electric thing if it truly is coming from clean sources of electricity. So it's good that New Jersey has those caveats, I think. And also, they haven't specified the requirements for the EVs in 2035. Like Oregon is actually requiring that by that point that every EV has to have at least 150 miles of range, of real world range. And for PHEVs, they'll be allowed under these exemptions because it's, the PHEVs will qualify in all of these bans. They're saying that even those have to have 50 miles of electric range for the plug-in hybrids too. So, that's what Oregon's doing, and, we'll see how other states react. New Jersey hasn't said anything like that yet, but, we'll see if everyone meets these deadlines and these, all these conditions and stuff. still, something I'm skeptical about. We'll have to see. But not a surprise, New Jersey is one of the states that follows California's emissions stuff. So I would assume that all of these states that follow California will, do the same kind of thing here sooner or later. But anyway, interesting to hear that. And for the last news story here this week, I'll end on another refreshing good story here. So Capital One is reporting, and I think dealers and others are reporting this as well, that a new LX trim for the CR-V and the Civic is now showing up unannounced at dealers. There was no press release about it, which is curious. So it's interesting. So it's about $3,000 less than the EX trims, and that was the big problem last year, when these new CR-Vs and Civics are coming out, is they're a lot more expensive now, and you really got to pay a premium for that Honda now, over the Corollas and, the RAV4s and things like that. But now with this LX being reintroduced, it brings the CR-V starting price back under $30,000 and brings the Civic starting price back under $25,000. So back to some competitive, starting prices here at least. And so this is interesting, though, because actually during the Type R drive event last year, I actually was able to talk to the product planner at Honda a little bit, and I actually asked him, I'm like, are you considering bringing back the, base models? And at that time, again, this was the fall of last year, so not long ago, he said that there's been no demand for base models that they've heard at least, and that they're just, going for the higher trims and stuff because they said that's what people want. Whether that's actually what people wanted or whether that's what people were just settling for because they wanted a new CR-V or a new Civic and they stretched themselves and just took whatever was on the lot. Obviously, that worked out for Honda and all the other car companies that are doing these top trims because those are the highest profit versions of those vehicles. So, I was even a little skeptical back then when he's like, everyone just wants top trims. I'm like, surely there's people that want base Civics and CR-Vs. And now, sure enough, there are people who want base Civics and CR-Vs. But according to the report here, they said supposedly Honda's spokesperson told Car and Driver that the LX was brought back due to unprecedented demand just in the past 6 months since they said there was no demand. So something's not adding up here. I think it's just, there was limited production. They wanted to maximize profits. And that's okay. Just be upfront about that and say, hey, look, we're trying to, do what makes the most sense for the supply chains. And they're not alone. Again, every car company is doing this. They're trying to, limit production. Even GM this week cut back production of their trucks because they want to maintain an optimal inventory level. And they don't want to get back to doing huge incentives. None of these companies want to do that. Why give away money when you don't have to? If you can keep the demand high and keep supply relatively low, just enough that you keep up with demand, but not so much that you're having to give cars away, it makes sense, unfortunately, but it's just kind of odd the way that they're wording this and saying, oh, well, no one wanted them last year. Now all of a sudden everyone wants base models. I don't buy that, but, it is what it is. At least I'm glad the LXs are back, though. And so now there's an affordable option for people who don't need to have, heated seats and sunroofs and stuff and just need good, solid transportation. You have that now with that base LX trim, and I'm glad to see that's back. They also say, Honda says that it'll actually help them with their microchip shortage, because you'll have people, that'll have less chips in their vehicles, so they can churn those out a little bit faster, and that would have helped last year too. But anyway, I'm glad that they're doing it now. For those curious about the LX, like I said, it gets rid of the sunroof, heated seats, blind spot monitoring, and also swaps in some steel wheels with hubcaps instead of the alloy wheels. And they're on dealer lots now, supposedly, if you're interested in one. So, but great to see the affordable models returning. And some sanity brought back to the car market here a little bit. And so, lastly, though, I want to thank all of you who are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we didn't have any new members join this week, but I did want to give a huge thank you and shout out to member Raphael for being a member now for over 9 months. I really appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the perks here. I very much appreciate always seeing your comments and your support, Raphael. It really means a lot, and I really appreciate the support. But for anyone else who would like to become a member, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and also a link in the description. And also, don't forget to grab your $13 Harry's starter set for just $5 by going to harrys.com/Maran. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Please also leave a like, comment, and subscribe to keep these videos coming. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.